We have breaking news we want to interrupt right now with. Apparently, Iran is launching some retaliatory attacks. Fox News is covering that live. Let's just dip in for a few minutes and hear what they have to say.
The wire right now through Reuters, Iran's top security body tells Qatar this action does not pose any threat to our friendly and brotherly neighbor Qatar, making it obviously very clear that this is a targeted attack on the U.S. base only. Jennifer.
Well, that suggests to me, and again, if the Israeli intelligence is correct, and it's 6 ballistic missiles, those ballistic missiles would be GPS guided, and they would know where the U.S. air base is, Al Udeid. It was surprising to me earlier today when we heard about the intelligence that Iran was planning to strike Qatar because of their close relationship and the mediating role, the important mediating role that Qatar has played between Iran, its proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, and others with Israel and the United States. So I would not expect for a willy-nilly raining of missiles down on the people of Qatar or the Qataris themselves. But the U.S. has a very large air base there, about 40 miles outside of Doha. That is well known. And then there's the U.S. Embassy, and the U.S. Embassy staff were told earlier today and just moments ago to shelter in place. So clearly the belief that the U.S. targets in Qatar were likely the target of this alleged Iranian strike.
All right, Jan, stand by with this. Sandra, this is kind of interesting. Iran's top security body says the armed forces used the same number of bombs against Al Udeid that the U.S. had used in attacking Iran's nuclear facilities. So that would be a count of 14. We only
All right, trying a different camera here. The other one, something's wrong with the camera system, so we're going to try something a little bit different. But thanks everybody for rolling up. Let me know if you can see me and hear me. We had some technical issues because my children were playing with my office and broke some stuff. G. Nunez in the house. Thanks for showing up. Really, thanks for being here. Really appreciate everybody rolling up. So we have got some massive news, all sorts of massive news, because even as I was going live, we have more breaking news that we're going to get to right at the end of this segment. But really lots of things going on. The first is that obviously the first set of breaking news, Iran launched a series of retaliatory strikes today. But what I want you to know, bottom line up front, these were all for show. This was a giant paper tiger propaganda machine. It's clear from, and I'm going to show you all the evidence. We're going to dive into it. It was clear from not from the get-go, but as soon as this thing got rolling, that Iran was responding for the sake of responding, more as an internal propaganda effort for their own people to help maintain the illusion that they are in control and possibly maintain their own power. I think they're more worried about an internal coup, an internal rebellion, revolution, than they are about anything else. And they certainly realized, it seems as though that they realized that the U.S. was far more capable militarily. I think this strike by Trump, perpetrated by our amazing military, went a long way to demonstrating to Iran that you are out of your league. We just flew 7 bombers from around the world, 18 hours away, across oceans, countries, neutrals, hostiles, you name it. And the bombs were falling before you even knew we were there. And I think Iran realized the U.S. can strike us at will. If we get into this thing, it's going to get ugly. So we're going to dive into this. You saw that initial clip. So here I want to show you, we've actually got some video from the strikes. These took place over the air base in Qatar. And you can tell, I mean, this is just amazing footage. You've got airstrikes being intercepted in midair. Meanwhile, you've got super yachts and luxury condos in the background. I mean, if this is just not the modern day Middle East, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy town. Super yachts, mega yachts, massive condos, and missiles flying. Just crazy. So here, this was over the U.S. Air Base in Qatar. Now, come to find out, and this is where I wanted to dive into some of the evidence. And Ibix Warrior, hey, thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate you showing up. So what we've got, I want to show you this. So there's a lot of information that has now come out about these airstrikes, about the Iran response. So the New York Times has reported that Iran coordinated its attack on the U.S. Air Base in Qatar with Qatari officials and provided, some reports are saying, up to 12 hours advanced warning. They basically, I mean, just imagine this. You've just been bombed. Your nuclear program, for all intents and purposes, has been bombed back to the Stone Age. And you've been blustering for the last 24 hours that you are going to respond, you are going to kill the infidel, blah, 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 blah. And you essentially call your quasi buddies in Qatar who, it's kind of like the love triangle in high school. Like, you got your girlfriend, but she's kind of your girlfriend, but she's also dating this other guy. And, so you basically call her and tell, and you and the other guy are in a fight. And you basically call her and say, tell the other guy that, I don't want to fight. So Iran calls Qatar and says, we're going to launch a bunch of missiles here in about, about 12 hours. And just so you know, just might want to give you a little bit of heads up because we like you, but we don't like the U.S. So we're only going to launch them at the U.S. base. But just want to let you know. And so Iran let America know. According to the Times source, Iran sought to deliver a symbolic response to President Trump's strike on the nuclear sites while keeping retaliation limited and allowing for an exit ramp. This is very similar to what they did back in 2020 following the killing of Soleimani. Capo in the house. Capo literally, that's right. So this is absolutely amazing stuff. This just shows you the effect that Trump has on the world order, on foreign policy. Trump completely changes the game. This never would have happened with bumbling Biden or cackling Kamala. Now, so Trump tweeted about this right after, basically as it was going on or right after it was over. So check this out. Iran has officially responded to our obliteration of their nuclear facilities with a very weak response. Weak response, which we expected and have effectively countered. There have been 14 missiles fired, 13 were knocked down, one was set free because it was heading in a non-threatening direction. Now, there were more missiles that were fired also into against the Iraqi air bases. Evidently, 2 of those did land, but there was no property damage and no injuries. I am pleased to report that no Americans were harmed. Hardly any damage was done. Most importantly, they've gotten it all out of their system, and there will hopefully be no further hate. I want to thank Iran for giving us early notice. He's even acknowledging this, which made it possible for no lives to be lost and nobody to be injured. Perhaps Iran can now proceed to peace and harmony. Hey, spoiler alert, we got some big news at the end of this segment. So let's keep going. Trump goes on to thank the Emir of Qatar for basically taking the information that they got from Iran. I'd like to thank the highly respected Emir of Qatar that he has done in seeking peace for the region. Regarding the attack today at the American base in Qatar, I'm pleased to report that in addition to no Americans being killed, there have also been no Qataris killed or wounded, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, awesome stuff here is what we got going on. Now, for those of you, because there were still, even today, there were the blustering morons on our own side, the actual not MAGA people, the new Trump deranged morons who just, I mean, they can't stand anything having to do with American show of strength. I don't know, or they are so Israeli deranged, which I understand. There are some huge issues with Israel as a country, how they've propagated the war in Gaza, what they've done to the United States in the past, how they involved us in Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria and all this other nonsense. There are huge issues. But at the same time, we cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. Why can we not let them have a nuclear weapon? Well, just a reminder of who Iran is. So here we go, just to give you a brief snippet.
بعضی از این حرفایی که در این سفر رئیس جمهور آمریکا به منطقه مطرح شد لایق جواب دادن نیست. اصلا.
That's to America. That's to England. That's to Israel. Come on, yeah, that's Now, I would love to know, I'd love to ask these people, all right, how much were you paid to show up at this little rally and shout this? And B, what were you threatened with if you didn't show up? Because all the reports we're getting is that the vast majority of Iranian people are done with Khamenei and all this other nonsense. But this is what we're looking at. This is why you could never let them have a nuclear weapon. Even Tulsi Gabbard had changed her tune. She was out today talking about the fact that Iran was close to getting a nuclear weapon. In her previous Senate testimony, she had said that the Supreme Leader had not greenlit the project to actually make a weapon, which is true. They hadn't actually greenlit the project, but they were refining. They had refined up to 60%, knowing that they can go from 60 to 90 in just a matter of weeks. And so if you just because you haven't assembled an actual nuclear weapon payload doesn't mean that you're not putting everything in place so that you can do so in a couple of weeks. So even she came out and basically backtracked on some of the people that were using her as evidence that, oh my gosh, Iran was nowhere close and they were in peace talks and this is stupid. Even she came out and supported the president. So with that, the other thing that I wanted to show you, I think the other thing that was clearly evident to Iran in all this is that their coalition, whatever coalition they thought they had completely evaporated. Russia essentially came out and said, yeah, we're not involved. Iran, you did this to yourself. We're out. China remained silent. They condemned the attacks, but they didn't do anything really beyond that. And Iran's only real, quote unquote, nuclear card that they could play was closing the Strait of Hormuz, which the only one that really, really hurts is China. China gets all their oil from the Strait of Hormuz, basically. We don't. We could be self-sufficient if we had to. It would hurt Europe. But that would then draw in the French, the Germans, the Brits, all of NATO shows up. You've got a big problem. Now, at the same time, you've got the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia basically immediately expresses its condemnation of the aggression launched by Iran against their brotherly state of Qatar. So even Saudi came out and said, no, this ain't happening. We're out. We're not going to support you. Now, all this led to basically a whole, so Iran's complete response was without teeth. It was a paper tiger. It was designed all for show. It was nothing. It was nothing but political theater and a propaganda machine. Now, unfortunately, we had on our side, we had some dimwits out there calling for regime change. Now, Trump did weigh in, and this was a hot topic today. Did Trump call for regime change? I don't think so. And I want to explain this tweet before we get into some Lindsey Graham shenanigans, before we get into the other big piece of news for today. The Panicans. Rock, absolutely. Trump is the GOAT, and the Panicans are once again panicking because now they're wrong. So Donald Trump tweeted out right after J.D. Vance went on the airwaves and said, we're not interested in regime change. Marco Rubio went out there and said, we're not interested in regime change. Pete Hegseth went out there and said, Trump's not interested in regime change. Then Trump tweets this, and everybody thinks, oh my God, he just threw all of his advisors under the bus. And he says, now I want you to listen to this carefully, because one thing that Trump does fairly well, he doesn't talk precisely. Like, he will use big, grandiose terms, but when he tweets, he tends to be a little more buttoned up. It is not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? This was not. Now, I'm not living in Trump's head, so this is my take on this tweet. This is absolutely not a green light for the neocons to start drawing up war plans for Iran. This was not a call for the Western powers, including Israel, to affect regime change in Iran. This was a call to the Iranian people. If you want regime change, it is on you. You stand up and do it. We'll support you. We'll cheerlead, but we are not, I do not take this in any way, shape, or form as we were ever, ever, ever going to put one boot on the ground, regardless of what Lindsey effing Graham said, because he's just a complete loser sometimes. He just drives me batty. So here's Graham breaking, Lindsey Graham on the Senate floor arguing for regime change in Iran, saying we need to take out their leadership. Nope. We don't need to. If the Iranian people want to do it, let them do it. If the Israelis want to do it, let them do it. We're not going to do it. That would signal way too great an escalation. Trump's masterstroke move was overwhelming force on a very limited objective. The very limited objective of Iran's nuclear capability, going back to his 15-year ad nauseum comments that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon, over and over and over again. Throughout the campaign, he said Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. So he limited his strike to that specific objective, but he did it with overwhelming force to demonstrate not only to Iran, but to the world that we can hit whatever we want whenever we want. And we can hit it with massive power. And therefore, Iran, you cannot withstand us. If you want to escalate this thing, we will unleash that same level of force on your oil fields, your natural gas fields, your refineries, your ports, your economy, all of your military targets, and all of your leadership targets. We can take you out when we want. And so, despite Lindsey Graham's ridiculous nonsense, Trump was not going to get goaded in. In fact, so here's the other big piece of breaking news. While I started this live stream, hey, Glenn and Shannon, Salty Life, welcome in. Thanks so much for being here. You're right in time for the other big piece of breaking news, and that is that Donald Trump just tweeted out. Check this out. This is amazing. He just tweeted this out. Congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions. So my understanding is there are still Israeli airplanes that were over Iran that were headed back, all that stuff. There were still Iranian missiles that were in the air for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended officially. Iran will start the ceasefire upon the 12th hour. Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the Iran will start the ceasefire. Upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful on the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will. Trump's funny sometimes. I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage, intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East, but it didn't and never will. God bless Israel. God bless Iran. God bless the Middle East. God bless the United States of America. God bless the world. Donald J. Trump. So Trump, masterstroke number 2, has basically started the U.S. involvement in a war and ended it in 2 days. If this holds, he has brought this entire thing to an end, decimated Iran's potential nuclear capability, and opened the door for further negotiations to permanently end such nuclear capability. Rock and roll, yep, I trust the sincerity of Trump and his military generals. Exactly. I mean, to the Candace Owens and Dave Smiths and others of the world who have just been lambasting Trump, do you not remember that Trump ran on no foreign wars, no foreign wars, no forever wars? Give the man a little bit of benefit of the doubt. Don't, the minute he bombs somebody, immediately run to we're doing regime change and nation building and Trump betrays MAGA. You didn't do that when he was bombing the Houthis into the Stone Age. Why did you do it when he unleashed on Iran, specifically on Iran's nuclear capability? As he said, as JD Vance absolutely and very eloquently put, we did not on Saturday attack the nation of Iran. We did not attack the people of Iran. We did not even attack the government of Iran. We attacked specifically Iran's nuclear capability, their budding nuclear capability, and we put an end to it because they cannot have a nuclear weapon. So in basically 72 hours, Trump has started and ended the Iran war, which is absolutely amazing. Let's hope this holds. Let's pray. Let's pray for the peace of the Middle East. Let's pray that this holds and that we can get into real negotiations. And what I actually pray is that the Iranian people say enough's enough. Rise up, kick these morons out of power, and reinstitute some level of representative government. Go back to the Iran of the 70s, where women were free, where you had education, where you had all sorts of opportunity, where you were the modern embodiment of Persia, a rich, wealthy, cosmopolitan society. Let's hope that the Iranian people say enough's enough. That's what we can hope for. That's the only regime change I want to see in Iran. He did what he said he'd do. Absolutely. You are correct. 100%. All right. So with that, thanks everybody for rolling up. We're not done yet. We got 2 more segments that I want to get to, but please like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share Courageous Media with everybody that you know as we try to bust out of this nonsensical YouTube algorithm. But we are monetized. Thank you very much for everybody who helped us do that. So if you want to support the channel, please hit us up with a super. Join us on Patreon. Really appreciate it. You can also become a member now on YouTube. Thanks so much for being here. Let's dive into the next story, which I think is equally as important. And I am going to get, because that's going to be a Candace Owens reference in here. Now, remind you, I absolutely respect and love Candace Owens in many of her viewpoints, but lately she has seemed to really toe some of, I mean, she's been silent on some things and extremely vocal on others. And it seems a little bit lopsided, but we'll get into that. So I want to dive into this next story. And I want to set this up just a little bit because we had a major news story over the weekend. This basically happened on Sunday, right after the Saturday, and it got a kind of eclipsed by the whole Iran, strike on Iran's nuclear facilities and what's Iran going to do and blah, 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 and all the nonsense from that. So all the panicans were consuming the entire news cycle. On Sunday, a major event happened in Michigan that I want to get to, but I want to prelude that with, there is one religion in the world. As much as the Jewish people own the media in terms of being a persecuted people, the religion that is most persecuted in all the world and has been now for 2,000 years is Christianity. Christianity around the world is the most persecuted religion by far. Check this out. This is far left Wikipedia. And if you didn't see the title, this is Persecution of Christians. And we are scrolling at, 5 pages at a clip, and we are now about halfway. And just scroll and scroll and scroll, talking about the persecution of Christians. Now, 2 things happened. This first one was a little earlier, but again, I want to set up something that happened in Michigan. So the first one is, if you didn't see this happened just about a week ago in Nigeria. This young woman, and she's just one of many, was one of 200 victims of a church that was destroyed by Muslims in Nigeria. And again, we don't know why. Why are so many Christians silent on the persecution of other Christians around the world? And I'm not just talking about they get marginalized or they get ridiculed. No, in places like Nigeria, they get murdered by the hundreds, as you see in this article right here. And here's the follow-up to that article from Avi Yamini. 200 Christians slaughtered in their homes overnight in Nigeria. Islamic terrorists stormed Yelvata, beheading them while shouting Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. But now this is where I want to get to the Candace Owen reference. For all of Candace, she has been on her podcast screaming about Trump bombing Iran's nuclear facilities, and yet was entirely silent about this. As were many Christians. Don't get me wrong, I'm not singling her out. It's just the fact that she has a huge platform and has been using it for some very specific purposes. But I didn't hear any of this, which this could have been a big deal for getting the word out. We have to, the world needs to know what's going on. But now to get to the big story, which was what happened on Sunday. And this is both a warning, it's a celebration, and it is once again really an admonishment of the propaganda media, because the propaganda media does not want you to know any good Second Amendment stories. Check this out. This happened in Wayne County, Michigan, over the weekend on Sunday. Now, there were lots of competing narratives on this particular event. Some had the people driving a truck through the church. But I want to show you from inside the church what we found out now. All right, so here's from inside the church. And there's been two conflicting stories. One, this was an actual church service, which based on the time, evidently this happened at 11:15, kind of rings true. But this could also, the other report was that there was an early service and that this was then Vacation Bible School. So this was basically all children. Vacation Bible School, for anybody who doesn't know, in Baptist circles, is basically kids showing up, hearing the gospel during Christmas break or during summer break.
Oh. Come on, everybody to the back. Please, everybody come to the back. Come to the back. God, they gotta come. They gotta come. Come on. Come on.
You can hear us say, everybody come to the back. They got a gun. They got a gun.
Out, I don't think is a good idea. Come on here.
So, I think I lost the feed. Okay, so basically what we've got is a shooter entered the church, which again, ostensibly this is Vacation Bible School. So let me pull this up. And this was looking to be a very, very dark day. But he was shot fatally by a church security guard. Shoots and kills. Church security guard shoots and kills active shooter after a church deacon ran over the shooter in a Ford F-150 truck. Now, this was the mistaken story that the shooter had driven the truck through the front of the church and started shooting. No, evidently the guy walked in, had multiple weapons. One deacon saw what was transpiring, grabbed his truck, tried to hit him. That's when the other security guard was able to take him out. No one was injured except for the security guard who was shot in the leg. So thank God for an armed security officer in this church who basically protected what could have been hundreds of lives. Senior Pastor Bobby Kelly said a deacon ran the shooter over, giving a security guard time to shoot the armed attacker outside the church. So he was run over by one of our members who saw this happening when he was coming into the church, Kelly said. So this is absolutely amazing. Of course, you will see none of this on the propaganda media. They will report none of this because A, it doesn't fit their narrative. It is the persecution of Christians. B, it's because he was taken out by an armed security guard, proving the effectiveness of the Second Amendment. So this is just absolutely amazing stuff. Thank God this happened. Thank God for his providence in protecting these children and adults and letting this not be an absolute travesty. And so, Curtis, since when did Candace Owens become a Christian? Candace Owens is a Catholic, so it's debatable. We'll talk about that later. All right, so that was the other big piece of news that happened over the weekend. But now I want to get to one final segment, which kind of wraps everything up, especially goes to what Trump has done with Iran. And we talked about the fact that the panicans were out there absolutely going apoplectic, that Trump dropped a few bombs on Iran. Oh my God, it's World War III, it's World War III. Well, we now know from Trump's most recent tweet that Iran has already come to the table. There are already deals in the works for a ceasefire. But the panicans were also saying, one of the other narratives that they were giving was that Trump is ignoring his domestic agenda, right? No one's talking about the big, beautiful bill. What's happening with immigration and deportations? Well, what I want to show you is that two things are happening. One, the immigration and deportations have continued at an ever increasing clip. An appellate court just handed Trump a major victory, saying that people can be deported to a third party country. So that ends that whole argument that you can't deport, somebody to a country that is not theirs. Yeah, we can deport them anywhere we want. Bye-bye. You're out of the country. And they've ramped up the immigration enforcement. I think the latest I heard was their quota is 600 a day, per state. Like it's massive. They have massive operations going on to deport people. I've got reports here in Texas that ICE has been showing up to construction job sites. And there are wholesale people that have fake social security numbers, because I know the owners of these companies and they use E-Verify. So they've got entire workforces working on government and major commercial projects. And their entire workforce is under E-Verify, which means they have fraudulent social security numbers. But when ICE shows up at the job site, he said literally the entire workforce scattered, left tools, left vehicles running, you name it. He said it's absolutely nuts. He said, and I verified each one of them. So now we know the level to which, the depth to which has gone on the immigration side. But at the same time, we've got great news out of the Senate. One, John Thune came out and basically said, we are not going on recess until we pass the big, beautiful bill. And Mark Wayne Mullen seconded that.
Well, guys, it's Monday morning, and I've got to admit, I'm not the biggest basketball fan of all times. However, I did watch the game last night. So congratulations to the Thunder. Congratulations to Oklahoma. It was exciting to see us bring back a championship to Oklahoma, and I was excited for the fans. What are we doing here in Washington, D.C. this week? Obviously, there's a lot of talk going on about what took place over the weekend. We'll get into that later on through the week. But what about the One Big Beautiful Bill? People are saying, does this distract us from One Big Beautiful Bill? No. Leader Thune has made it very clear we are going to stay here until we get this voted out of the Senate and sent back to the House and get it to the president's desk. There is no daylight between us, between the House, and between the president. In fact, the president was on the phone dealing with Iran and Israel, and at the same time dealing with One Big Beautiful Bill. It's absolutely amazing. I talked to my wife yesterday and I was like, it's truly an example of leadership that I'm learning a lot from, because the way he's able to pivot, the way he's able to just stay even keel, make decisions, move on, make a deal, move on, and still lead from the front with consistency is absolutely, honestly, it's something that I take into consideration every day right now, because I'm watching a true leader work. We're delivering.
Fantastic. Absolutely true. Trump maintains an even keel. He doesn't get emotional, and he leads. Now, at the same time he was dealing with Iran, he was pushing the big, beautiful bill. And he's not oblivious to it either. He's got his eye on every detail. So we now know that he's been pushing Thune, and Thune has basically said, we are not leaving. No senator will leave until we've passed this back to the House to set up for signature. But while all that's going on, Trump is not oblivious to what is going on in the big, beautiful bill. I hate green tax credits in the great big beautiful bill. They are largely a giant scam. I would much prefer that this money be used somewhere else, including reductions anywhere would be preferable. Windmills, the rest of this junk is the most expensive and inefficient energy in the world. So he's basically calling out elements that have been put into the big beautiful bill that he wants out. Absolutely. So this is amazing. Trump has his finger on every single aspect. And it is because of that the Dems have their lowest approval rating in history at 21%. 2 in 10 people actually think they're worth voting for. But at the same time, Trump's approval rating is taking off like a rocket, and it is scaring the Dems and everybody else to death. Check this out, because Trump is becoming a juggernaut. Breaking. Trump's approval rating surges to a whopping +7, 53-46. He is on the rise. Media narrative is currently bombing. We've got another one, another example of that right here. From Trafalgar presidential approval poll, 54-44. Rasmussen in the last couple of days had him as high as 56. This is absolutely amazing. This is bombshell stuff, because leading in with getting the now that if he succeeds in ending this thing with Iran, if he can just get Putin over the hump in Ukraine, and he gets this big beautiful bill passed, and he gets this economic juggernaut rolling, they will roll into the midterms. He could theoretically have a 60% approval rating and essentially drag a whole bunch of congressmen and senators with his coattails across the line, and maybe even expand their advantages in the House and Senate. This would be absolutely amazing. He could pick up seats, which is almost unheard of. But this is what Trump is doing, y'all, and it's absolutely amazing. So the big breaking news, we are headed towards a ceasefire in Iran. I think Trump has played this masterfully. I didn't see a ceasefire happening that fast, I'll be honest, but it looks like the competence, the precision, the power, the secrecy of the strike that we pulled off has basically shocked the Iranians into the U.S. can hit us anywhere, anytime they want. We can't fight this. We've got to take a different tact. I'm hoping that's what happened. Let's see how this plays out in the next 24 hours, because that's when this ceasefire should be cemented and in place. Really appreciate everybody being here. Rick, gotcha, just jumped in. Well, welcome in, Rick. Thanks for being here. And Curtis, you in Texas, that's awesome. I'm here in the Dallas area. Liberal Dems are so lost deep in the forest. That's right. They cannot see anything. They have no money. They're broke. We found out that basically on Friday that the Democrat Party is broke. Their donors have abandoned them. And amazing. I do want to say this one thing as a parting shot. When I saw the story that the Democrat Party was basically broke and begging for money and borrowing to maintain whatever commitments they had and pay their payroll, the media story was, well, big donors have abandoned them. And I immediately thought, and I want to know what you think in the comments. Yeah, have the big donors might have abandoned them. That's true. I think their biggest donor abandoned them. That being the U.S. taxpayer through illegally laundered money. Trump and Doge and his cabinet have shut down USAID. They have shut down money laundering scheme after money laundering scheme after money laundering scheme in the U.S. government. And we have come to find out that all that money was laundered to NGOs, to further NGOs, eventually back into Democrat coffers and Democrat politician pockets. I think the Democrat Party has lost their biggest donor, that being USAID and everything surrounding it, and all the money that they illegally laundered from U.S. taxpayers and put into their own pocket. That's what I think. I think that's the biggest reason why the Democrat Party is currently bankrupt. Let me know what you think. Would love to hear from you in the comments. Capo, thanks everybody for being here. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share Courageous Media with everybody that you know. Let's drive so that we can get the word out. We can keep defending our country. Really appreciate everybody being here. Thanks so much. Remember, God is good and He is sovereign. It'll all be good in the end. On my sister channel, I am going to be doing a video talking about, are we in the end times? Because I've been getting that question a lot. Seems like much less so now that we got a ceasefire, but let's go. You guys are awesome. Have a great, great afternoon.